Sandra stood near the edge of the soundstage while the lights slowly dimmed around her. The end of the shooting day always brought a mix of relief and pressure, but today something felt heavier than usual. The director walked in with the production team, holding his clipboard close to his chest, and the room fell silent. Everyone expected feedback, but the air carried a quiet tension that made Sandra's heartbeat grow faster. She tried to look calm, but her hands trembled slightly where no one could see. She had worked hard on every scene, giving every emotion she could find inside herself, yet she felt uncertain. It was the kind of uncertainty that stayed with her even when she thought she had done well. She lowered her eyes and waited. The director cleared his throat and spoke in a flat tone that echoed through the room. He said only one person had delivered the scene perfectly. A few heads turned. Some whispered. Some smirked quietly. Sandra felt her chest tighten before the director even said the name. When he finally spoke, he praised Keanu for maintaining emotional control and delivering steady performance. The words stung more than she expected. She stared at the floor, her shoes suddenly becoming the only thing she could look at. It was not jealousy. It was disappointment in herself. She felt she had failed again, and the weight of her own expectations pressed against her like a silent storm. She wished she could disappear for a moment and breathe without feeling judged. The whispers around her grew. A few crew members exchanged glances, and Sandra imagined what they were thinking. Maybe she was slowing the production down. Maybe she was missing subtle cues. Maybe her timing was off. Maybe they were wondering why she kept trying so hard when she never seemed to get things right the first time. These thoughts rushed through her mind faster than she could stop them. She never complained. She never argued. She simply tried again and again, but the disappointment stayed with her like a quiet shadow. Today it felt heavier than ever. She kept her head lowered because she did not want anyone to see the look in her eyes. She hated feeling vulnerable in front of people, especially people who misunderstood her effort. She took a slow breath and tried to steady herself. She thought the moment would eventually fade, and she could slip out of the room unnoticed. All she wanted was to leave quietly before someone asked her what went wrong. She prepared to take a step back and walk away. But before she could move, she felt something unexpected. A gentle touch landed on her shoulder. It was soft but steady, almost warm, and it made her freeze as if time stopped around her. Sandra slowly raised her head and turned slightly. Keanu stood beside her with calm eyes and a silent understanding that spoke more clearly than any words. His expression did not carry pity. It carried respect. Respect for her effort. Respect for her patience. Respect for her quiet strength. It surprised her because she did not expect anyone to notice her disappointment, let alone understand it. Keanu leaned closer, just enough that only she could hear him, and whispered softly that she should walk with him for a moment. His voice was gentle, not demanding. There was no judgment in his tone. She nodded slowly, still confused but drawn by something sincere in his eyes. His presence made her feel grounded even when her thoughts were scattered. The room fell even more silent when the two of them stepped aside. Everyone watched them leave, wondering why Keanu chose to speak to her at that moment. The tension in the air grew stronger. No one knew what was going to happen next, and even Sandra herself felt lost in the sudden shift. As they walked down a quiet hallway, the noise of the stage faded behind them. Sandra tried to understand why Keanu approached her. They had worked together for years, but he rarely intervened in situations unless something truly mattered. She felt confused, nervous, and oddly relieved. Keanu did not speak immediately. He walked slowly, waiting for her breathing to steady. She appreciated that subtle awareness he always carried. He was gentle with sincerity, patient with silence, kind without being dramatic. She had always admired that part of him. Finally, Keanu stopped near a small room at the back of the building. It was dim, filled with old props and unused equipment. Flickering lights reflected off dusty shelves. Sandra felt her tension return, wondering why he brought her here. She feared he might tell her something she already believed about herself. She feared he might say she needed to work harder, even though she was already giving everything she had. She feared he might explain why she was falling behind. Her heart beat faster as Keanu walked toward a small shelf near the back of the room. He reached for a dusty metal box. Sandra watched quietly. The suspense made her stomach tighten. He opened the box carefully, as if protecting something fragile, and pulled out a small old camera. Sandra stared at it, confused. She asked softly why he had it. Keanu looked at the camera with a calm expression and told her that this camera once changed his life. His voice was low, and the weight in his tone made her pause. He said he believed it was about to change her life too. Sandra felt a strange chill run through her. She did not understand what he meant or why this moment felt so important. Keanu gently wiped the dust off the camera and turned it on. It made a soft clicking sound and the screen lit up with faint flickering footage. He stepped closer to her and said he wanted her to watch something. Sandra hesitated, her mind filled with questions she could not voice. She wondered what footage he had. She wondered why he had brought her here. She wondered why he looked at her with such seriousness. Keanu pressed a button and a video began to play. It was a recording from earlier that day. The moment Sandra saw the scene begin, her breath caught in her throat. She watched herself on the screen, performing the same emotional sequence she thought she had failed. She braced herself for disappointment. But then something happened in the footage she had not noticed during filming, something she never realized. And as the video continued, Sandra felt her heart tighten in disbelief. This was not the failure she thought she had created. This was something else entirely. This was the start of a truth she never expected to uncover. Sandra kept her eyes on the small screen while the footage continued to play. Her heart moved between confusion and fear because she did not know what she was about to discover. She watched herself act through the emotional scene, speaking lines with sincerity and holding the right tone, but something new caught her attention. In the corner of the frame, another actor stood frozen, eyes wide, completely lost in the middle of his dialogue. She had not realized this during filming, or maybe she had reacted too quickly to even think about it. The actor had forgotten his lines, yet the scene did not collapse. It kept flowing because Sandra had reacted instinctively. She softened her tone, gave him a cue with her eyes, and gently redirected the moment in a natural way that allowed him to recover without anyone noticing. Keanu paused the video and looked at her with steady eyes. Sandra felt her breath grow unsteady. She whispered that she did not even remember doing that. Keanu nodded softly and told her that this was exactly what made her performance special today. She did not cling to her own lines. She focused on the story, on the moment, on saving the emotion of the scene. She acted like a true professional, someone who could lift the entire atmosphere of the story when others stumbled. Sandra felt her chest tighten because she had believed the opposite. She had convinced herself she failed while this footage showed her doing something truly remarkable. Keanu pressed play again. Sandra watched the rest of the take. She saw herself guiding the emotional flow like nothing was wrong, while the struggling actor regained his timing thanks to her subtle improvisation. When the camera cut off, the room in the footage erupted slightly as the crew prepared for the next take. But something important happened in the background. Two crew members exchanged irritated looks. Sandra noticed this with confusion. She asked Keanu why they seemed upset. Keanu paused the video and leaned back against the table. He told her that he had noticed several small reactions throughout the past week. He said some people were trying to shift responsibility away from their own mistakes, and she had become the easiest target because she was quiet and humble. Some crew members had been blaming her for delays even though she was not the cause. Sandra felt her heart sink. This revelation hurt more than she expected because she always tried to create harmony, not conflict. But Keanu was not done. He walked around the small room and pulled another box from the shelf. This one contained a few more memory cards. Sandra's eyes widened. She whispered that she did not understand what he was doing. Keanu looked down at the cards and said he had asked a cameraman he trusted to record every rehearsal and every take that seemed unusual. He had not planned to reveal this unless it became necessary. He said he did it quietly to protect people he cared about. His voice was calm, but there was firmness beneath it that made Sandra feel both safe and unsettled. Sandra asked softly why he did not tell her earlier. Keanu replied that he wanted to be sure before bringing anything to her attention. He did not want to worry her unless he knew what he was dealing with. She absorbed his words slowly. Her mind struggled to understand everything at once. She felt grateful but also overwhelmed. She did not expect Keanu to notice her discomfort, let alone investigate it with such quiet determination. He picked up the old camera again and switched to another clip. This time the recording was from a rehearsal 2 days ago. Sandra watched as she performed the scene perfectly while another crew member miscommunicated instructions, causing a small pause in the process. Yet in the meeting later that day, she was the one blamed for slowing down the shoot. Sandra watched the clip with disbelief. She whispered that she did not remember the details clearly. Keanu said he remembered everything. He had seen how she handled mistakes with patience. He had seen how she never defended herself even when she was not at fault. Sandra felt her throat tighten. She asked him why he cared so much. Keanu looked at her with a softness that felt like quiet understanding. He told her that respect was never something he offered lightly. He said she had earned it through her dedication, humility, and the kindness she showed every day without expecting anything in return. He said some people take advantage of gentle hearts, but he refused to stand by and let that happen. His words made her eyes warm with emotion she tried to hide. Keanu took a careful breath and continued speaking. He told her that someone had been manipulating small situations to make her appear less capable. He said it was not malicious in a cruel way, but it was selfish. Someone wanted to shift blame and avoid responsibility, and Sandra had become the silent target because she always carried weight without complaint. She held her hands together tightly, trying to stay steady. She whispered that she did not want trouble. She did not want conflict with anyone. Keanu gently told her that sometimes avoiding conflict allows unfairness to grow stronger. She sat down on a small wooden crate in the corner of the room. She felt tired, confused, and strangely relieved all at once. She had always pushed herself harder when she received criticism, believing she deserved it. She did not know that people were shaping the truth to protect themselves. She stared at the floor and wondered how long this had been happening. She wondered if everyone saw her the way she saw herself. She wondered if she was truly failing or if she had been carrying blame that never belonged to her. Keanu walked closer and sat down in front of her. He placed the camera on the table beside them and rested his hands on his knees. He told her gently that the director was not against her. He told her that the director had many responsibilities and sometimes trusted the wrong feedback. He said he believed the director needed to see the truth for himself, not because Sandra needed validation, but because fairness mattered in a team. Sandra listened quietly. She always trusted the director, and the thought of him misunderstanding her made her heart ache. Keanu stood up slowly and reached out his hand. Sandra looked up. His gesture told her they were not done. He asked her to walk with him again. She hesitated but eventually placed her hand in his. They left the small, dim room behind and walked through the hallway toward the director's office. The lights hummed softly overhead. Sandra felt her steps grow slower as they approached the door. She whispered that she was not ready to confront anyone. Keanu squeezed her hand gently and told her that she did not have to confront anything. She only had to stand beside him while he revealed the truth. She took a slow breath and steadied herself. The suspense in her chest felt strong, but so did the quiet comfort Keanu offered. She lowered her eyes for a moment, gathering courage she did not know she had. And then Keanu pushed the door open. The director looked up as the two of them entered, surprised to see them together. Sandra felt her heartbeat rise. Keanu stepped forward with calm confidence, holding the camera in his hand. Sandra stood behind him, nervous but determined. The truth was finally moving toward the light, and she had no idea what was going to happen next. But she knew one thing. She was no longer facing this moment alone. The director sat behind his desk with a puzzled look as Keanu and Sandra stepped into the room. He noticed the camera in Keanu's hand, and his expression shifted from confusion to curiosity. The silence in the room stretched for a few seconds, heavy and tense. Sandra stood slightly behind Keanu, her hands clasped together, her breath slow and careful. She did not want to appear afraid, but the weight of the moment tightened inside her chest. Keanu remained calm, steady, almost reassuring simply by the way he stood. He greeted the director politely, and the director nodded, still unsure why they were there. Keanu began by saying he wanted to show the director something important. His voice carried no anger, no accusation, only calm honesty. The director leaned forward slightly as Keanu placed the small camera on the desk and clicked the playback button. The screen lit up with the earlier footage. The director watched closely while Sandra kept her eyes on the floor, unable to look at the screen again. The silence in the room deepened as the director watched every moment in the video. He saw the struggling actor lose his line. He saw Sandra recover the scene smoothly without hesitation. He saw her guide the emotional pace with quiet professionalism. And he saw the subtle reactions of a few crew members in the background, reactions that clearly expressed annoyance even though Sandra was the one holding the scene alive. When the footage ended, the director leaned back slowly, his eyes fixed on the screen as if replaying what he saw in his mind. Sandra finally lifted her head, but she did not speak. She waited to hear his response, prepared for anything but hoping for understanding. The director sighed and rubbed his forehead. He admitted he had not seen this angle before. He had only seen the footage from the primary camera, which cut early due to a technical error. He explained that he assumed Sandra was the reason the scene fell apart, not realizing someone else had lost their lines. Sandra listened quietly, her heart tightening. She never wanted blame placed wrongly. She only wanted to know where she needed to improve. The director said he regretted his earlier judgment, and his voice carried a sincerity that softened the tension in the room. Keanu nodded, appreciating the honesty. He told the director he believed Sandra deserved to know the full picture, not for praise but for fairness. The director agreed and said he valued both of them deeply. He said misunderstandings can grow fast in a busy environment if no one stops to verify the truth. Sandra felt a small sense of relief, but it did not erase the deeper questions lingering inside her. She wondered how many times she had quietly accepted criticism that did not belong to her. She wondered if she had ignored signs of unfairness because she trusted too easily. The director asked Keanu where the footage came from. Keanu explained that he had noticed some inconsistencies over the past days. He felt Sandra was receiving incorrect feedback, so he asked a trusted cameraman to record everything quietly. He said he never intended to expose anyone unless it became necessary. He only wanted to protect the honesty of the work and the well-being of the people in the team. The director nodded slowly, understanding the intention behind the action. He thanked Keanu for bringing it to him respectfully, instead of causing unnecessary conflict. The atmosphere softened, but the moment was not over. The director asked if there was more. Keanu hesitated before opening the small box he had brought with him. He placed 3 more memory cards on the table. Sandra felt her breath catch again. She had not known he had gathered so much. Keanu asked the director to watch another clip. This time the director saw a rehearsal where Sandra adapted to a sudden change in the script while another crew member mishandled the scene notes. She recovered the moment but was blamed for the delay afterward. The director frowned, leaning closer to the screen. He requested to see the third clip. This one revealed a conversation between 2 crew members after Sandra left the room during a break. They blamed her for a scheduling issue, even though the recording showed the confusion came from miscommunication among the staff themselves. The director watched in silence. His face showed discomfort as he understood how easily false impressions had spread around the team. Sandra stood behind Keanu, biting the inside of her cheek slowly. She did not want revenge or confrontation. She simply wanted truth. But watching the truth unfold still hurt more than she expected. When the third clip ended, the director turned off the camera and looked at the table, then at Keanu, and finally at Sandra. He apologized to her sincerely. He said he had relied on quick feedback and had not taken the time to observe the full situation himself. He told her she had been carrying weight she did not deserve. Sandra felt her eyes warm with emotion she tried to hide. She nodded slowly, accepting his apology, but something inside her still felt heavy. She knew misunderstandings happened, but she also knew how quietly she had suffered through them without saying a word. The director stood from his chair and approached her with gentle steps. He told her she was far more capable than she realized. He said her instincts during scenes were strong and natural, something only experienced actors possessed. He admitted he had been planning to test her resilience in upcoming scenes, thinking she could handle pressure, but he understood now that he should have communicated differently rather than risking discouraging her. His voice carried guilt, but also respect. Sandra listened silently, absorbing every word. Her disappointment earlier had turned into something deeper, something both painful and enlightening. Keanu stepped closer, as if sensing the shift in her emotions. He placed a hand lightly on her shoulder again, just like earlier in the soundstage. The touch was soft, steady, a reminder that she was not facing this moment alone. She took a slow breath and looked toward him. The director observed their quiet connection and understood why Keanu had stepped in with such determination. He saw not only teamwork but genuine care and respect. The director then said something neither of them expected. He revealed that he had already chosen Sandra for a major upcoming role, but he had not told her yet. He had been watching her growth silently. He said she had the emotional depth and authenticity needed for the role, something rare to find. He apologized for allowing misunderstandings to overshadow her progress. Sandra stared at him with disbelief. She felt her heart soften and tremble at the same time. The moment felt surreal. All the doubt she had carried slowly unraveled inside her. But the suspense was not over. The director mentioned that he had one more piece of information. He walked back to his desk and pulled out a folder. Sandra watched quietly, nervous again. He handed the folder to Keanu and said the decision he made was influenced by someone who believed deeply in her potential. Keanu opened the folder slowly. Inside was a recommendation letter. Sandra leaned forward slightly, her hands tightening. She wondered who wrote it. Keanu read the first line and then turned the page toward her. Her breath stopped when she saw the handwriting. It was Keanu's. The letter described Sandra's patience, emotional strength, and growth. It praised her for supporting others on set, for holding scenes together, and for never drawing attention to herself even when she carried heavy pressure. It showed deep respect, deep belief, deep admiration for her work. Sandra stared at the page without moving. She felt a warmth build in her chest, spreading slowly and quietly until her eyes filled with tears she could no longer hide. The director said Keanu had given the letter weeks ago without telling anyone. He had requested no credit, no attention, no mention. He simply wanted the director to see Sandra for who she truly was. Sandra covered her mouth softly with her hand as emotion overwhelmed her. She never expected such kindness, such quiet support, such unwavering belief in her ability. She looked at Keanu, and his calm expression told her everything she needed to know. She whispered his name in a trembling voice. He responded with a soft smile that held both reassurance and respect. In that moment, Sandra understood something important. Keanu had not come to protect her because she was weak. He had come because he saw her strength long before she did. The room felt heavier after the director revealed the truth about the recommendation letter. Sandra stood still, unable to speak for a moment. Her thoughts moved slowly, as if her mind needed time to understand what had just happened. She had spent the entire day believing she had failed. She thought she had disappointed everyone, including herself. But now she realized something different. She realized someone had been silently noticing her strength, even when she could not see it herself. Someone had believed in her growth long before she believed in it. The director stepped back toward his desk, giving the two of them space. Sandra kept her eyes on Keanu, her heartbeat moving faster in her chest. She whispered that she did not understand why he went so far for her. Her voice was soft, almost fragile. Keanu looked at her with a calm expression filled with sincerity. He told her that he respected her dedication. He said he admired how she showed up every day, worked hard, stayed patient, and kept kindness in her heart even when situations turned unfair. He said these qualities were not common, and they deserved to be protected. Sandra lowered her eyes as his words settled into her. She felt overwhelmed by the weight of the moment. For years she had worked quietly, often hiding her doubts and fears under a smile. She never wanted to trouble anyone. She never wanted to seem less capable. She carried everything alone because she thought it was the right thing to do. Now she realized how much she had carried without saying a word. The understanding of it made her chest tighten, and she took a careful breath. Keanu placed the letter back into the folder and set it gently on the desk. He then turned toward the director and asked what the next steps would be. The director explained that the new role would begin rehearsals in a few days. He said Sandra would need time to prepare, but he believed she could handle it. Sandra listened quietly, still trying to absorb the idea that she had been chosen for something so important. It felt unreal. She asked softly if he was sure. The director smiled and said he had never been more sure. He told her that she had a gift, one that had grown stronger with every project they completed. Keanu looked at her with a gentle smile, encouraging her without needing to say a word. She felt the warmth of his support again, a warmth that helped her breathe more freely. She thanked the director and promised she would do her best. After a few more words, the director dismissed them kindly, giving them time to process everything. Keanu placed a hand on the small of her back, guiding her toward the door. It was a simple gesture, but it carried comfort. It told her she was not walking alone. As they stepped into the hallway, the atmosphere felt different. The lights seemed softer. The sound of distant equipment seemed calmer. Sandra walked quietly beside Keanu in a long corridor filled with posters of past films. She looked at the floor while her thoughts swirled around her. She could not ignore the question that kept returning to her mind. She wondered why she had never seen her own strength the way Keanu saw it. She wondered why she believed criticism so quickly but questioned praise. She wondered why she had carried disappointment with such certainty. They walked for a few minutes in silence before Keanu finally stopped near a small bench by the windows. He suggested they sit. Sandra nodded and lowered herself onto the bench, her hands resting in her lap. Keanu sat beside her, giving her enough space to breathe yet staying close enough to keep her grounded. Outside the window, the evening sky had turned soft and pale. The sun was fading, and the studio lights outside flickered to life. Sandra looked down at her hands and whispered that she felt confused. She said she did not know how to accept everything that happened. She said she never imagined someone would defend her so strongly without her knowing. Her voice trembled slightly. Keanu listened without interrupting. He waited until she finished. Then he told her that people like her often underestimate their own value. He said they give so much of themselves to others that they forget to look at their own progress. He told her she had been growing steadily for years, but she never stopped to see it. Sandra took a slow breath as his words settled deeper into her. She felt her throat tighten again. She whispered that she always tried to improve, but she felt she kept falling behind. Keanu shook his head softly. He told her she was not falling behind. She was climbing with patience. He said that success built through patience was stronger than success built through pressure. He said she had been improving in ways she never measured. And he reminded her that the camera footage showed her guiding other actors, not failing them. She let his words soak into her heart, and for the first time in a long time, she felt something shift inside her. It was small but meaningful. It was a quiet new belief that maybe she was more capable than she allowed herself to think. After a moment of silence, Sandra asked him something she had been afraid to ask. She wondered why he decided to gather the footage. She asked if he noticed something before she did. Keanu nodded slowly. He said he noticed her growing quieter over the past few weeks. He said he saw how she forced herself to smile when she felt stressed. He said he saw how quickly she blamed herself whenever something went wrong. He said he saw her trying to carry the entire weight of responsibility alone. He knew that feeling. He had lived through it many times in his own life. He understood how heavy it could become. Sandra looked at him with soft eyes filled with gratitude and surprise. She asked him gently why he did not tell her earlier. Keanu replied that he wanted her to find the truth herself, not because he said it, but because she could finally see it. He said he believed that discovering her own strength would change her more deeply than simply being told she was strong. His voice held a sincerity that made her heart tighten again. She whispered that she felt like she had disappointed him earlier. Keanu turned toward her and met her eyes. He told her she had never disappointed him. He said disappointment comes from lack of effort, not from quiet mistakes. He said she always gave her heart to every scene, every rehearsal, every day, and that alone demanded respect. Her eyes warmed, and she looked away for a moment to steady her breathing. She felt emotion rise inside her, the kind of emotion she often hid. Keanu placed his hand gently on her shoulder again. It was the same gesture that had changed everything earlier in the day. This time it felt even more meaningful. It felt grounding. It felt like reassurance without words. It felt like understanding. She closed her eyes briefly, allowing the moment to settle into her heart. After a long, quiet pause, Sandra asked what would happen next. Keanu told her the truth gently. He said the next days would be important. People would learn what really happened. Some would feel guilty. Some would feel surprised. Some might remain silent. He said the truth never stays hidden forever, and now that it had come out, everything would slowly shift. He told her she would step into her new role with strength, not because she wanted to prove anyone wrong, but because she finally understood her own worth. Sandra nodded slowly. She felt fear inside her, but she also felt something new. She felt a quiet power growing, a calm determination, a sense of belief returning to her after being buried under doubt. She whispered that she hoped she could do justice to the new role. Keanu smiled gently and told her he had no doubt she would. He said she had earned it through honesty, patience, and kindness. The evening light grew dimmer outside the window. Sandra took a deep breath and stood up slowly. Keanu followed. She looked at him with soft gratitude and whispered thank you. He responded with a quiet nod and a warm gaze that held respect, not pity. She felt stronger because of that. As they walked down the hallway again, Sandra carried something new in her heart. Not confidence, not pride, something deeper, something steady, something that felt like truth. And she knew the story was far from over. The next morning arrived quietly, but Sandra felt its weight long before she stepped onto the set. She woke with a strange mix of nervousness and strength inside her chest. Her thoughts kept returning to the truth she had learned, to the way Keanu had stood beside her, and to the director's apology. She felt different now. Not completely confident, not completely healed, but something inside her had shifted. It was small, like a seed, but it was alive. She held onto it as she walked through the studio gates. The air was cool, and the early light painted the building in soft shades. Sandra took slow breaths while walking toward the dressing trailers. She wondered how people would treat her today. She wondered what had spread among the crew since yesterday. She wondered if anyone knew about the footage or the conversation in the director's office. She felt unsure but not afraid. Keanu's words still echoed inside her mind, reminding her that strength did not always roar. Sometimes it whispered quietly, telling her to keep walking forward. As she reached the hallway leading to the main set, she heard soft murmurs. A few crew members glanced at her, then turned away quickly. Some looked surprised to see her walking with such calmness. Some looked uneasy, as though something had been revealed to them overnight. Sandra felt her heart beat faster, but she kept moving with steady steps. She had spent years avoiding attention, but today she understood that hiding would only give more space to misunderstandings. When she reached the makeup area, she found the room unusually quiet. The artist greeted her gently, almost carefully. Sandra sat down while the artist worked on her face. She noticed the way the brush moved slower than usual. She asked softly if everything was all right. The artist hesitated, then admitted that the director had spoken to the team earlier that morning. He had told them that misunderstandings had happened and that Sandra had been unfairly blamed in several moments. He did not give full details, but he made it clear that the truth was known. Sandra lowered her eyes. She did not want anyone to feel guilty. She only wanted fairness. She whispered that it was all right, and the artist nodded with relief. After finishing her makeup, Sandra stepped out of the room and began walking toward the main set. As she walked, she noticed more eyes on her, but this time the looks were different. Some carried guilt, some carried surprise, some carried quiet respect. It was subtle but clear. When she reached the set entrance, she saw Keanu standing near one of the cameras, speaking to the cinematographer. His posture was relaxed, his presence steady as always. Sandra felt her heartbeat soften when she saw him. He glanced at her with a warm smile, and she felt a calmness settle into her chest. She walked toward him, and he greeted her with a soft nod. The cinematographer looked at her with new respect, then politely stepped aside to give them space. Keanu asked how she felt. Sandra took a slow breath and told him she felt nervous but stronger than yesterday. He smiled gently and said that was exactly where real growth begins. She lowered her eyes shyly, feeling gratitude she could not fully express. Keanu stepped a little closer and told her something that made her chest warm. He said she was handling everything with quiet dignity. He said that took courage. Before she could respond, the director called everyone to gather around. Sandra and Keanu joined the group. The director stood tall, holding a clipboard, and addressed the team with firm but calm clarity. He thanked everyone for their hard work and explained that there had been misunderstandings in the past days. He said he wanted to correct the narrative and ensure fairness in the team. He looked briefly toward Sandra, then continued speaking without mentioning details that would embarrass anyone. His tone was respectful. Sandra felt her chest grow warm again, not because he defended her publicly, but because he protected the dignity of everyone involved. That mattered to her. She never wanted anyone to feel exposed or ashamed. When the director finished speaking, he asked everyone to treat the day as a fresh start. The crew nodded. The tension eased slightly, though not completely. Some things take time to heal, but the shift had begun. After the meeting, Keanu walked with Sandra toward their set marks. He told her that today's scene would be emotional and delicate. Sandra nodded, feeling ready. She had always given her heart to every scene, but today she felt a deeper understanding of herself. Keanu noticed the change in her posture and smiled. He told her she looked grounded. She blushed softly and thanked him. He told her he meant it. As they prepared for the scene, Sandra reviewed her lines quietly. She felt the character inside her more vividly than before. She understood the emotions differently now. Everything she had experienced in the past days had opened a deeper layer of her heart. She stepped into her position and waited for the director's cue. Keanu stood opposite her, his expression calm and steady. His presence alone made her feel safe enough to let her emotions rise naturally. The director called for action. Sandra entered the scene with gentle vulnerability. Her eyes reflected real depth, real experience, real pain mixed with quiet strength. Keanu responded to her emotions with the same sincerity. Their chemistry flowed effortlessly. The moment felt real, not constructed. The crew watched with unusual silence, drawn into the authenticity of their performance. The scene ended and the director called cut. He stood silently for a moment, then said softly that it was perfect. Sandra felt a warmth inside her chest, a warmth that came not from praise but from knowing she had acted with truth. She glanced at Keanu, who gave her a small approving nod. After a few more scenes, the director called for a short break. Keanu walked beside Sandra as they stepped off the set. The hallway felt calm. She asked him softly if he was proud of how she handled everything. He stopped walking, turned toward her, and met her eyes with a steady gaze. He told her he was not proud of her because she acted perfectly in the scene. He was proud because she found her strength in the middle of doubt. He said she had carried disappointment with grace, recovered with courage, and stood up with quiet power. His words made her chest tighten with emotion. She looked down for a moment, overwhelmed. He gently lifted her chin with 2 fingers, not forcefully but tenderly, guiding her to meet his eyes again. He told her she had a quality he admired, a strength shaped by kindness. She whispered that she had almost given up on herself. Keanu shook his head softly. He told her she never gave up. She just forgot to look at her own worth. His voice was warm, steady, reassuring in a way that felt deeper than simple encouragement. They walked toward the outdoor area to get some fresh air. The sun had risen higher, casting soft light across the set. Sandra stood near a railing and looked out over the lot. She felt both tired and renewed. Keanu stood beside her, hands resting casually in his pockets. The quiet between them felt peaceful. Sandra spoke softly, telling him she did not know how to thank him for everything. He smiled and said she did not owe him anything. He said kindness is not a transaction. It is something given because someone's heart deserves support. His words made her eyes warm again. She asked him gently what he expected from her now. Keanu turned his head slightly toward her, studying her expression. He said the only thing he expected was for her to believe in her own strength from this moment forward. He said he had always seen it. Now she needed to see it too. Sandra nodded slowly, letting the truth settle into her heart. She took a deep breath and whispered that she would try. Keanu smiled softly and told her that trying was enough. As they stood together under the morning light, Sandra felt something she had not felt in a long time. She felt hope, and she knew the story was building toward something even bigger. The final day of the week arrived with a soft breeze and a sky that looked almost calm enough to quiet every thought. Sandra stepped out of her car and looked at the studio building with a steady breath. This time, she did not feel the weight of fear pressing against her chest. She felt something new, something steady, something formed from the moments she had faced, the truths she had uncovered, and the support she had received from someone who believed in her even when she did not believe in herself. She walked through the hallway with slow, confident steps. The crew greeted her with genuine warmth, not forced, not curious, but respectful. The shift was subtle but meaningful, and Sandra felt it settle gently in her heart. She nodded politely, appreciating the change without holding any resentment. She had learned something important in the past days. People made mistakes. Misunderstandings happened. What mattered was how everyone moved forward. When she reached the main set, Keanu was already there. He stood near the lights, adjusting his jacket, speaking quietly with a member of the camera team. The moment he saw Sandra, he paused and gave her a soft smile that reached his eyes. She felt her chest warm with gratitude. She walked toward him, and he greeted her with a calm, gentle tone. He asked how she was feeling. Sandra told him she felt different, stronger, and strangely peaceful. Keanu nodded as if he had expected that answer all along. The director then called them both aside. He explained that today's scene would serve as the emotional heart of the entire film. It required trust, vulnerability, and truth. He said the chemistry between them had become something powerful and wanted them to use that energy in the scene. Sandra felt nerves rising again, but Keanu placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, steadying her. She looked up at him, breathing in the calmness he always carried. He told her she was ready. They moved toward their marks. The set lights brightened, casting a gentle glow around them. The crew settled into silence. Sandra took a slow breath, letting her heart open to the emotions she carried. The director lifted his hand and called for action. The scene began. Sandra stepped forward, delivering her lines with raw sincerity. Her voice carried emotion shaped by everything she had lived through. Her eyes reflected a depth that could not be rehearsed. Keanu responded with equal honesty, his tone soft, grounded, filled with care. Together, they created a moment so real that the set seemed to disappear around them. It felt like two hearts speaking truth in a quiet corner of the world. As Sandra spoke her final line, her voice trembled with genuine emotion. Keanu stepped closer, just as the script required, and placed his hand gently on her shoulder. It was the same gesture that had changed everything days ago, a touch that carried kindness, compassion, and understanding. The moment felt so real that Sandra's eyes softened naturally. The director let the silence hang, absorbing the emotional weight of the performance. Then he called cut softly, almost reverently. The room remained silent for a few seconds, as if everyone needed a moment to return to themselves. Finally, the crew broke into quiet applause. Sandra felt her chest fill with warm, honest pride. This time, she knew she had given something real, something from the heart. The director walked toward them with genuine joy in his eyes. He told Sandra she had delivered a performance deeper than he could have imagined. He said she was truly ready for the new leading role. She felt her eyes warm with emotion as she thanked him softly. He nodded and stepped away to speak with the crew. Keanu stayed beside her. He looked at her with a gentle smile that held both admiration and respect. He told her she had done something beautiful today. She whispered thank you, her voice filled with quiet relief. She looked down for a moment, processing everything she felt. Her heart was full, but something deeper remained unsettled inside her. She turned toward Keanu with a soft breath. She asked him the question she had held inside for days. She asked why he had believed in her so strongly, even when she had almost given up on herself. Keanu paused, his expression shifting into something tender and serious. He stepped closer and spoke in a calm, honest tone. He told her that he believed in kindness. He believed in resilience. He believed in people who tried even when they felt invisible. He said Sandra was someone who lifted others quietly, someone who carried her heart with sincerity, someone who deserved support not because she was struggling, but because she was strong. Sandra's eyes softened. She whispered that she never knew anyone saw those parts of her. Keanu smiled gently and said he had seen them from the beginning. He said true strength is often silent, and only people who understand silence can recognize it. She felt tears forming, but not from sadness, from relief, from healing, from the discovery of her own worth. She stepped closer to him, her voice barely above a whisper, and told him he changed something inside her. Keanu shook his head softly. He said he did not change anything. He only helped her see something that was already there. For the first time in a long time, Sandra felt complete. Not because someone praised her, not because a role was offered, but because she finally understood her own strength, her own voice, and her own value. The sun began to set outside, casting soft golden light across the studio floor. The day felt peaceful. The air carried a quiet warmth. As they walked out together, Sandra looked at the world around her with new eyes. She felt lighter, stronger, more grounded. She felt ready for whatever would come next. And she knew something with absolute clarity. The moment Keanu touched her shoulder days ago was not the moment he rescued her. It was the moment she finally began to see herself the way he had always seen her. With respect, with resilience, with kindness, and with quiet strength that could no longer be hidden.